I would like to introduce our guest speaker this morning, Mr. Tony Massengale, who is with the LA County Commissions on Human Relations. He is both a veteran of this conference and more so a veteran in building community through civic organizing, something that he will talk more about very shortly. He has well over, as he told me, 1, 2, or 3 decades worth of experience in youth development, gang intervention, and community organizing. So without further ado, I would like you to give me a round of applause for our first speaker, Mr. Massengale.
Good morning. Hope you're feeling as good as I am. I'm tingly all over. I'm not a speech maker. I did write a speech. I'll try to stick with it, because they're going to get the hook and pull me off here if I gravitate into my real calling as a minister and start preaching to you. However, there's a couple of things I need to say, otherwise I wouldn't be up here. I don't like to get in at the microphone, and I'm behind the scenes. I'm an organizer. I like to put people together and leave no trail, no evidence that I played a role. But I need to say a word to you this morning about collaboration. I believe this problem that we're all here for, called community and gang violence, is one of the complex issues of our society, of our world. And my observation, having worked on this problem all of my adult life, and I was 61 last November, I find that cosmically, divinely, or somehow, we cannot solve this complex problem if we don't figure out how to work together. It's a societal problem. It's a community-wide problem. I remember the days, and I look around, and I'm not going to call any names, but some of you, I've been with you all this journey. You know who you are. I can remember when we argued about whether or not we should invest in intervention or prevention. Get over it. It's one part, each are one part of a continuum. We never stop preventing. We never stop intervening. We continue the cycle of prevention and intervention. So why is there an argument? Get over it. Should gang intervention practitioners be in the mix? I can remember the arguments, especially from law enforcement and elected and appointed officials. Once a gang member, always a gang member. You can't trust them. And having grown up in South LA and watched this gang thing come online, and going off to college and picking up the headlines in 1970 and 71, and reading about black on black crime and Crips and Bloods and a resurgence of Latino gangs in East LA, I said, no, we're supposed to finish the revolution. No, we're not going to go backwards and start hating and killing each other. No. And black on black crime and brown on brown crime and yellow on yellow crime, if you'll pardon my shorthand for the ethnic groups in this county, is still 90% of what happens. And then that 10% where we go across colors is such a deadly threat, because some gangsters have sent a message. We don't want them in our neighborhoods. It goes way beyond the gang issue. It's a race issue. We got neo-Nazi racism going on. And it goes both ways. My first project with the Human Relations Commission was to go into where I live, in Pasadena and Altadena, to work on what had become something that the graffiti said, SOM, sock on Mexicans. And I was outraged. And so we pulled together a collaborative. We called it Vision 2020. I named it. I'm not trying to brag. I said it's got to be Vision 2020 because we have to see more than we've seen. And we have to see it for the long haul. We have to be at it for about 20 years, minimum, in order to reverse the cycles. And at least until the year 2020, let's be at it and stay at it. And so we built a collaborative, over 200 volunteers, active, over 50 offices and agencies, active. And it's continuing 7 years later. And they've got the models for community reintegration and reentry of formerly incarcerated folk. Got the model for apprenticeships and preparation for the construction trades. Over 14 unions and 20 agencies and faith-based organizations. The community college, all part of the mix. They've got the model for a summer program for young people who didn't finish their credits in their senior year in high school, called Skills, because there is no summer school anymore. They've got the model for so many other pieces of the puzzle. But the hardest thing was to get them to see that they needed each other. I did over 200 one-on-ones. That's what we organizers do. A listening campaign. And how many stories did I hear where someone said, you know, I can't stand so-and-so. I'll never work with them again. I tried it. Let me tell you what they did. And I listened. And in a couple of instances, I actually got the two parties together and asked one of them to make an apology. They didn't do it because I would beat them up. I'm not that bad. They didn't do it because I guilt-tripped them, because guilt doesn't work for the long haul. They did it because it was the right thing to do. And a moral conscience obligated them to apologize for a couple of things. I think in order to build broad-based collaboration, we're probably going to have to do some apologizing to each other. Because my African-American brothers and sisters, if we can't make common cause with Latinos, with Asians, with white folks, we're going to lose this war. And that goes for each of you. We've got to work across lines of difference, lines of color and culture and ethnicity and language, and faith and religion, and profession and specialty. This problem of violence is so fixed up and so complex that without each other, we will fail. I watch the young Turks in this business coming up. They think I don't like them, but they wind up trying to reinvent the wheel instead of coming to the conference and just sitting and learning and reflecting on what they're hearing and seeing. We've been at this for a while now. There's something to learn, but the elders, which I'm a part of, we don't have all the answers. Otherwise, this problem would be solved. So our job is to encourage and push up the youngsters, the next generations. The civil rights and human rights issue of our generation, mine and yours, is violence. When neighborhoods and schools are unsafe, nothing else works. The best of programs and services don't connect. And so we've got to figure out some kind of public love to put with the public power that we need to build. We've got to figure out some kind of public forgiveness to bury the hatchet for who got the grant and who didn't, who got cut out of the contract and who didn't. We've got to get over it, and we've got to have a higher cause so that one life, one child, one grandmother, one uncle, one son, the death of one has to break our hearts, has to compel us to get involved, and has to remind us that we need each other in order to solve this problem. Don't get it twisted. I can remember the debates when the ad hoc committee at City Hall was mulling over the Connie Rice report. And we had a throwdown right in our ad hoc committee meetings, trying to craft a new definition and model for community-based gang intervention. If you're not a practitioner of community-based intervention, some of them said, you need to shut up. What are all these academics doing here? What are all these administrative types like Tony doing here? Pencil pushers. They were never gangsters. They're not on the front lines. What kind of peace treaty can they make? And they were half right. But they missed the point. The good news is we argued it out. We stayed together. We produced that definition and model. And we put something on the map in Los Angeles as it should be, because this is where this modern gang phenomena started. This is where this civil war across gang lines and race lines has begun, and it's time to end it. So they've showed me my card. I'm out of time. But I'm going to say this. I call you to purpose and mission. Call you to wake up and smell the cappuccino and realize that the civil rights and human rights issue of our time, of our generation, the thing that people were willing to march and demonstrate and die for, is here for us. This is it. We cannot do it without each other. We need the scientists and the researchers, the doctors and the experts. We need the grassroots practitioners, the interventionists. We need the organizers. We need each other at all levels. We need more services and programs. We need county government, which I work for, and my boss is here. Where's Robin? We need more county services and programs, mental health, and all the stuff. But those services and programs alone will not solve the problem, because human beings will figure out a way to muck it up. And so, it's us. It's us being willing to put what we know on the line, to teach what we know, to give it up. Forget about branding and who's going to get credit, and to put your piece into the mix, and to bend over backwards to collaborate. And I guarantee you that if we do, the next conference won't be a conference, Kylie and Paul. It'll be a convention. This place is too small. We need about 10 times this many folks. Let's make the leap from 300 to 3,000. I'm not just talking. We need to start a movement in this place of Los Angeles that is heard around the world, a movement for second chances, a movement for prevention and intervention, a movement for jobs. That's the only evidence-based practice that's guaranteed to turn a young person around or an old person around. We've got to have full employment in the United States of America. What's going to make our corporations bring those jobs back to this country so they have to pay a little more to employ Americans? If we don't, then I know how this great metropolis will end, how it will fall apart. If we do figure it out and figure out that we need each other, then we can truly be the place where people come to learn how to do it. So let's not throw away all that we've learned, but let's learn one more thing, that through collaboration, we can get it done. I invite you to join me in that, and I thank you very much for your kind attention.